Mario in New York, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Mario.
Hey, Ben, how you doing? Thanks for taking my call.
Appreciate it. Go for it.
So I actually had recently started a YouTube site and was getting censored really bad. And I'm wondering, how can third-party platforms grow if Google's controlling this algorithm where basically anything that pops up, they can suppress it? So it's kind of a catch-22 because now that they have so much power, they can hold down other sites from growing. And essentially, they're in control of all video content. They're suppressing other news sites. And I'm wondering, do you think anything can be done without the government intervening? Because I know you're a conservative and you want smaller government, but this seems to be an exception for me. And I'm wondering how you feel.
Yeah. I mean, it is quite possible that at this point we do have a monopoly that's actually hurting the consumer. I think that's particularly true with Google and YouTube, as you mentioned. I'm not sure that it's quite as true for say, Twitter, where, again, you could probably come up with Parler and that would be good competition. As far as a complete informational monopoly, whereby you have the actual means of distribution, you can throttle anybody else, that has long been held to be sort of an antitrust problem. So there may be serious antitrust issues that crop up with Google and YouTube in particular. There are other video sites, streaming video sites like Vimeo exists. There are other search engines that still exist. Yahoo is still a search engine, last I checked. But these are real open questions. And one of the things that I fear is there tends to be an unintended consequence to legislation, an unintended consequence to breaking up companies. Very often legislation ends up benefiting the monopolists because when you set up barriers to entry, let's take an example. Let's say that we think that Facebook is politically biased in favor of the left, which it seems pretty clear at this point they are. And let's say that you now establish a government commission to determine exactly what kind of material can be posted on a site and what can be banned. Well, then the problem is, how do you outflank Facebook? Now, Facebook has a market advantage.
Right.
Facebook has created a market hole by being politically biased. Let's say that you wanted to start a right-wing version of Facebook, but now there's a regulation on the books that says you can't really start a right-wing version of Facebook because if you do, you're violating the same laws that Facebook is apparently violating. You've now created a monopoly, which is one of the reasons why legislation very often to stop monopolies ends up actually re-enshrining the monopolies, or to control a company ends up enshrining the monopoly. It's very true that corporations very often seek legislation restricting them because they know it hurts everybody else more. So these are all things that have to be handled very carefully. I think, frankly, that legislation that maybe allows users to sue companies based on fraud, saying that we are imposing a policy when it is very obvious you're not imposing a policy might be good. That might be a solution to something like this. Whereas, you're working on Facebook and you post a New York Post article and there's no objective rationale by which Facebook can ban that. Like their own policies do not make clear that they can ban this. Then you should be able to sue them. You should be able to say, like any other company, that if they make a guarantee that you can post content of a particular type and you post it and they remove it for no other reason than they don't like your politics, well, then they have now engaged in a fraudulent transaction. If they wish to tell you that you cannot post a piece of content on the basis of politics, they should overtly say what kind of content cannot be posted. Maybe that is a solution here, but this is a very sticky situation, and I'm not sure that there's a great solution other than by launching companies in competition. My friend Dave Rubin has launched Locals.com. I have friends like Amy Pykoff who have helped launch Parler, and I'm hopeful that those will provide some level of competition for these companies.
Well, thanks. I think that's a great answer, actually, that if we make some sort of consequence, and especially financially, I think that could really work, and at least that'd be a great first step. So let's hope for that.
I hope so. Yeah, I would hope for that, too.
Thanks a lot.
People need to put their money where their mouth is and start checking out other services. Mario, appreciate the call.